Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Very good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 25th of November 2012 and the weather, as usual, pretty bad, but this is what you get for winter, I suppose. They're having really bad weather conditions over in the UK. I don't know whether people have been watching the news. Severe flood warnings in a lot of the places in the UK. Loads of flood warnings going on there. I think Ireland has been lucky. I think we had our fair share of it last week.
Well, we did. We had a lot of it there last week, so yeah. It's only fair.
No, not as bad as the UK though. When it's pretty bad in the UK.
No, I think well, we were lucky.
Yeah, very lucky. Okay, let's go through communication channels, Steve.
Okay. Communication channels are as follow: info@oymireland.com for your emails. We also have the guest book on the website as well. You're more than welcome to log in there, leave a message. We also have the chat facility on the site there as well. If you log into oymireland.com, top left-hand corner, underneath the OYM player, you will see the live chat button. Just click on there. You can log in. You can join in the chat with the guests who are already logged in. You can also pose questions there to our special guest this evening, who shall be revealed momentarily. And if you want to give us a shout on the phone, you can.
Give us a call on 046 927 1212.
04692711212. If you're ringing in from outside of the Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 in front of that. Alan.
Right, Steve. Just a couple of things on the list for tonight. Now, our guest tonight is obviously, you all know, is Kerry Cassidy, which is great for Kerry to come on our show, and we've a number of questions for Kerry. And obviously talking about a visit to Dublin and stuff like that. But before we bring Kerry on, just a couple of things we want to mention. Now, we're back to our original desk. If you remember last week, we had to have an emergency swap out with get an old desk in and put that in place where we swapped things around and sorted that out. So hopefully the audio will be back. I mean, it wasn't bad last week, the audio. It wasn't too bad.
Well, we didn't have any complaints.
No, we didn't have any complaints, so it was pretty good. So it wasn't too bad. Right, the bumper sticker campaign is still going, guys. If you can, if you have a few shillings, a few washers to put in the fund for the bumper sticker nationwide campaign. A few washers, as Harry says, for just raising funds so we can do a nationwide bumper sticker campaign and getting people to let people know that you're awake and stuff like that, okay? So if you have any spare shillings now, at the end of the day, we know Christmas is coming and everything else and things are tight. Also, if you don't have any money or money's very tight, there's ads on the website which you can click on. If there's any ads that take your fancy, click on them and we get a few cents for that as well. And it all goes into the coffers to help us fund the radio show and obviously fund the bumper sticker campaign.
And if you wanted it, you could ask friends, family and relatives to log on to the site, maybe buy you a surprise couple of bumper stickers for Christmas. They make great Christmas presents, don't they?
They'll make fantastic Christmas presents. Good idea, Steve. Right, okay. Now, Steve, this is going to be very, very quick. But, Steve, how's your week?
Great. How's yours?
Okay,
no, my week's been fine. Just catching up on some of the links that were sent out during the week. Catching up on some YouTube channels. Some information on YouTube. I know you did send me out one there during the week in relation to the kind of fourth, fifth dimension and that kind of stuff. I watched that. Still trying to digest that, but looking forward to blending into the fourth or possibly the fifth dimension. Can't wait for that to happen. This whole thing of being able to visualise something and touch it, feel it and smell it and taste it. I can't wait.
Hey, well, I tell you, if it happens, we'll be happy campers. But we'll have a talk about with Kerry about that. So that's your week, just keeping head to the grindstone and everything else.
Nose to the grindstone. You know, there's other things going on as well with it.
Did I say head to the grindstone?
You did.
It's very busy.
Yeah, head to the nose to the grindstone now. Nose. But with my darling beloved in the family way, it's been I've been kind of doing a little bit more at home. Although she might disagree with that. But so I'm kind of keeping busy.
Yeah, Steve's going to be a daddy shortly.
Yes,
it's going to be next Monday.
Next Monday.
It's even planned, you see.
Yep.
Fantastic. So he's going to be very busy.
Pick a date. Monday.
Monday.
How's your week?
How's my week? Well, just one thing I just want to mention. I don't know whether all these kind of energy changes that are taking place at the moment, a lot of people are saying they're experiencing a lot of things. and I'm no different than that. I'm having kind of these weird dreams for some reason or other. I don't know. Just, nonsensical dreams, but things all kind of mixed in and muddled up. And for a long time, I'm not really a person that dreams, funny enough. But just recently, I don't know about you, Steve, but I've just been having, a lot of dreams for some reason. I don't know.
Well, I think it's fair to say everybody dreams. Maybe you just don't remember your dreams. But they say that everybody dreams. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know. I haven't had weird dreams. However, just kind of backtracking a bit in relation to the whole, process of what's the word we're all going to go through at the moment?
Oh, the change. No, not
no, Alan. No. The other change, but where we're all going to be enlightened or whatever.
Ascension.
It's the ascension. The ascension. Well, I as I said about 2 weeks ago, I was doing a bit of research on the ascension process, and I haven't been having weird dreams, but I have been having aches and pains. And seeing a lot of people that I know have been having aches and pains, that they're just kind of coming on and then they're hanging around for a while and then they're going, but they're not distributed to anything, and people are going to the GP, the doctor, and the doctor kind of can't find anything wrong with them. So, see me, this is all part of the ascension process, but that's I've been having some aches and pains. Haven't been having the dreams, but if I may, you did tell me a couple of weeks ago, and I'll throw it out there, but Alan told me about one of the dreams that he had. And he said I was in it, so of course I immediately got worried.
Well, it wasn't sexual in any way.
No, he in the dream world, Alan owes me
€260.
Yeah, a lot of money. So yeah, keep on dreaming.
Yeah, well, it won't happen this side of Christmas anyway, I tell you.
No.
Right, but that was it. All I wanted to say was that these weird dreams, for some reason, all of a sudden, I'm talking about years of having nothing, and all of a sudden these dreams are coming in, so it could be got to do with that. I don't know.
Can you share one with us, like?
One was involved with a Korean martial artist. I don't know why. £260 that I owe you. Don't know why. And just weird, kind of non-consistent. Somebody said that it's your soul telling you something. Well, they must be using the wrong language. I don't know what they're doing because, I'm just not getting it, so they need to kind of clarify it.
Well, as Lord Vapor just said, there are weird sensations in the pineal gland. I wonder, would it be anything to do with the fact that maybe there's kind of the ascension process, plus the fact that maybe your pineal gland is starting to heal itself because you're not using fluoridated water, maybe you're getting the old fluoride out of the system.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll have to see what happens, but maybe our guest Kerry can actually put some light onto the subject because she does talk to an awful lot of people. So we'll bring Kerry in now. Good evening, Kerry. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm fine.
Not too bad. Kerry, thanks for coming on. As usual, it's a pleasure for us to have you on because as a kind of fellow investigator and broadcaster as well yourself, it's great kind of swapping, what you've been doing and what you're interested in and what's been going on. And you have access to a lot of people and a lot of whistleblowers. So it's very interesting having you on and talking about, things that we've come across or things that we might be able to verify that we've come across with you, which is fantastic to be able to do that. But before we crack on, what we really want to talk about at the start here is just that the fact that the last time you were on our show was in May 2011, which is quite a while ago, and I'm sure a lot has happened since then. And you were over here in Ireland in September 2012. You did a seminar over here. So let's talk about the seminar, why you were over here, and the seminar you did, and your experiences. Let's talk about that, and then we'll move on from there. Yeah.
Sure. Well, it was great and a great opportunity to be over in Ireland, and it was my first time in Ireland, and I very much enjoyed it. I'd like to go back and see more. We had a really wonderful time. We had a packed event, although the room wasn't huge. It was a lot of fun because there wasn't even standing room. It was just crazy, and so that was great that people came out in Dublin and were interested. I was there with Sean David Morton, as you may remember, and were you there?
We didn't get down because we actually live outside Dublin, and during the week, logistically from me and Steve, it's very awkward. I won't go into the details. But obviously we did a bit of promotion for you before to let people know you were coming over.
Oh, well, that was nice of you.
No problem.
So anyway, we actually met somebody there who took us into the wilds of Ireland. No, they took us up in Northern Ireland, I think it was north, and we went to this place which, God, the name is escaping me at the moment, but it's this special sort of hill where it's said that the goddess, well, Isis, they have sort of a festival there almost every year with music now. I don't know if you know what I mean, but anyway, it's out on some farmland, and it's quite an obscure place, and I'm sorry, but it has a sort of stone construction that's sort of unusual collection, and anyway, they've sort of made it in kind of a magical place because they've done carvings and things there.
Are you thinking of the Hill of Tara? Would that be it, the Hill of Tara? Because that's quite mystical. I mean, a lot of people for the summer solstice and winter solstice go there, and they obviously do various things, you know. But that's not in Northern Ireland. That's in Southern Ireland. So. Yeah,
no, I don't think so. I think it's it has sort of an unusual name that's hard to pronounce. I know that much.
It's not Newgrange,
and I wouldn't consider Tara a hard name to pronounce. So, but at any rate, and I can look it up if people are really interested. I did blog about it, so I have to go back into my own blog history and see what I wrote. I think I posted a picture as well, so people may be interested to go back into my blog around that time. And I was there in I guess it was September, around the September 4th or something like that.
Okay.
Anyway. So we did that, and we went hiking up there, and very, very interestingly enough, a person who sort of is a caretaker for the area and lives in a house right near there came out, and the person who is leading us up there, who is, a native Irish person, comes from a sort of old Illuminati family. I wrote about all this at the time, too, to some degree. But at any rate, we went to her family's estate later, but he came out of the house and actually recognized me, which was really strange.
Okay.
Because I was in like I said, the wilds of Ireland. He had no idea who wasn't supposed to know who I was or anything, but she just
fame
at
last.
So that was very, very, very fun, and it was just nice to have somebody out in the middle of Ireland who actually knew who Camelot was, which is very cool. So it was a magical place. There was great energy there, and we spent some time there. And then we went to this estate that belongs to her family, and the house is quite haunted.
Okay.
Maybe these kinds of old Illuminati villas, whatever you want to call them, probably do often have ghosts. But I did have some psychic intuitions of various things in the house that turned out to be quite accurate from what I understand. So that was my Irish experience.
Wow. Well, that seems to... How many days were you over here?
Only like 2 or 3, not very many.
So you crammed in quite a bit in them 2 or 3 days, which is pretty good going.
Oh, I also went to this museum that has what's called the Ken. I think it's called the Ken. These beautiful drawings that are part of a book that they found. It's kind of like a religious book, but it's really exquisite. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know obviously the Book of Kells, but I've never heard the Ken.
Kells. Okay.
The Book of Kells, yeah, which is obviously very very historic, and basically the location we're in at the moment is Kells.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, far out. Well, I saw this in the museum in Dublin.
Yeah, it wasn't in a college, the Trinity College.
It was. Yes, it was.
Yeah. Okay, it's probably the Book of Kells that you've probably seen there. I don't know whether is that the original they have there, Steve, or is that a copy and the original's tucked away somewhere?
No, as far as I know, the original is in Trinity College in Dublin, and they're actually, I think
it's the original.
Yeah.
They have it behind glass and everything. It's quite an exhibit. It's quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
The people of
Kells. fabulous library there that's quite ancient that you can go in, and I don't know, it looks like a library for hobbits.
Okay. Well, we are kind of an ancient culture.
It's very narrow and very tall and very small, and but really, really ancient. It's just fabulous.
Excellent. And tell us, the seminar that you did over here, can you tell us about that, what was involved and what you were talking about, and who was involved with that?
Oh, well, again, it was Sean David Morton and myself. We were doing a small tour of Europe. It was kind of done off the cuff. We literally didn't have a lot of advertising or advance notice. It was just something I wanted to do because I had some free time during the summer and I wanted to travel. Hadn't been traveling in a while. So what I did was organize it so that every venue we went to would pay for the venue after that. and the travel to the venue, so in the hotel. And basically we didn't make any money hardly, but we had a lot of fun, and we were able to do it simply because it kind of paid for itself as we went. And so Ireland was one of our stops, and what we talked about was just what I always talk about. I mean, depending on when you sort of listen to me and so on and so forth, I have more information, of course, depending on the whistleblowers I'm recording from, that information, and then I have an overall presentation that I give. So I gave, as much as we could in circumstances.
Okay, so there wasn't anything in particular for you coming to Ireland to talk about anything that's happening over here. It was just a general seminar and information that you were releasing.
Oh yeah, it had, it wasn't specific to Ireland in any way. It was specific, like I said, it was part of a European tour. So we'd been to several other European cities that we spoke in prior to coming there. We spoke in Amsterdam and in Antwerp and also in Glastonbury and London. And we also spoke in, let's see, what was it called? Constance, Lake Constance in, I guess that's the border of Germany and, I'm not sure, I forget where. Yeah, anyway, it's in Germany, I think.
Okay. And so at least you enjoyed yourself anyway. You had a good bit of fun. That's the main thing, isn't it? To enjoy what you're doing.
Well, it's wonderful to go out and meet the people everywhere. I mean, it's just, that's the thrill of it. That's, for us, that's the fun of it. But as far as my presentation, it's more or less what I present in general. And I've got various renditions of it, and it keeps evolving because as I learn more, I incorporate more into my presentation. So for that purpose, it's quite involved, and I always have more and more to add.
Well, it's great that you do a lot of travelling, especially over in Europe as well, because it means that you see the bigger picture. You've gone to these countries, you've met people in there. What we have found in the Truth Movement is we do get a lot of information from the States, but it's very concentrated on the States only. So when somebody comes out, maybe a whistleblower, or they're talking about something that's going on, it seems to be, obviously the people live in the States, so they will focus on the States, but it's as if Europe doesn't exist at all. Where I think because you have done so much with your travelling, and you're more open to the global, the global, all the countries globally, basically, not just.
It is global, but it's a global story. I mean, I'm completely focused on the entire world. I mean, I write articles on my blog all the time. People that follow Camelot will know this. And so I am writing about what's going on globally, how different incidents, different things that are going on, how different countries are factoring in. And whenever I get information that comes through that seems pertinent to the bigger picture, and the bigger picture being basically the ET presence here on Earth and the interactions that we're having with various races, that the government is having as well with various races, and so on.
Well, we're going to actually get that, but one thing I want you to touch base on as well, and congratulations on this as well, is your TV series, the Shadow Operations.
Well, it's not a series. That's the thing. It was a pilot, for a series. And what happens with a pilot is that they're supposed to air it, and they're supposed to put out advertising and do all of this stuff, and they didn't do any of it. What they did is we shot the pilot about 2 or 3 years ago, literally, and they hid it, they put it on a shelf and never released it. And then finally, a week or two ago, they put it out with no advertising whatsoever. And in fact, we would never have known they even did it if it wasn't for a Camelot fan that happened to see the listing. And we had talked, we talked extensively about it. I specifically talked extensively about it on my blog, saying, what a shame it was that it never came out. What a shame, this is what it was called, blah, blah, blah. So the person must have known, must have been a follower of Camelot extensively. And so they alerted us 24 hours before the thing was going to air. And so I went into this massive, me and my webmaster and a few other people basically went into a massive kind of viral campaign to get the word out so people would watch it, especially in the United States, because this is how they determine what goes to series and what doesn't. What we found out is they didn't notify us, they didn't notify the producer, they didn't notify the production company, and there was absolutely no advertising. So what they do when they do that, and this was True TV, is they actually do something on purpose where they want to bury something. They've got advertiser bills to pay, and they throw it up on TV, and they hope no one will more or less notice. They just kind of use it as filler. So that's what happened 2 years after it was made. They used it as filler, and it has gone viral. It's now available on the front page of Camelot. You can watch it. Just click on the poster, Shadow Operations. It's gotten a huge response around the world. People are very, very interested in it, as we knew they would be. It's basically a showcase of our work. We had a great deal to do with the selection of the interviewees. As you will notice, anyone who knows Camelot will recognize, Bob Dean and Gordon Neville, who just passed on, and there are just a lot of Camelot witnesses in there. Richard Hoagland, hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody, but I'm Brian O'Leary, who also passed on, and others. And the thing is that what happened is it was more or less kind of disclosure for the mainstream in a box. And you've got Bob Dean talking about how the ETs are here and they've always been here, et cetera, et cetera. It's quite substantial. Now, if you're a Camelot follower, you will see that there are certain kind of things we had to do part of that particular pilot, which is one of the things that we had a huge beef with the producers over, and we had huge issues. I especially had huge issues, if you know my personality.
Okay.
might assume this, but I made a big thing, and we gave them notes and notes and notes when they would try to get us to do anything that was, not true or faked or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the things they wanted us to do was act as if certain information was new to us. And we just had a huge thing about this. And so what they did is at one point you'll see me have an expression on my face that looks like I don't believe what I'm hearing.
Mm.
And that was a reaction to something else completely, but they took it out of context, a cut.
Well, they do that with editing, don't they? They can really make anything look completely different through the editing.
So they did that fairly often. The other thing they did was in the first cut, as most people will know, I was the lead interviewer. I always have been on Camelot, and they wanted Bill to be the star. They wanted the guy to be the star. They wanted a male lead because of our show follows Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory, and they said supposedly that they have a very large male audience, and so they wanted the male to be the big man kind of person. So they took all of my lines and took them away. And so you'll see me sitting there saying nothing a lot of the time, which I never do.
Okay.
It's really interesting to me that nobody hardly noticed this. But at any rate, doesn't matter, because then they actually had to dub in his lines in the studio later because he didn't talk as much because that's just how he is. I mean, everyone has their style of being, right? So anyway, they just made me silent a lot. So you'll see me sort of sitting there saying nothing, which never happens.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we have a couple of questions. Well, a question come in anyway. We're going to get the ball rolling, and we're going to be talking about a number of things. But I'll pass you over to Steve. Steve, you have questions for Kerry?
Yeah, we have one question come in, Kerry, from the very second the interview started, and it's from one of our listeners over in TNS, and he said, can you ask Kerry about the USA coup? And then he said it's related to General, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Patrius, Benghazi, and fed-up military, etc.
Yes, well, of course. And did you want me to talk about that now, or are you saying you were going to go to a break, or
We'll probably go to a break in about half an hour or so.
Oh, all right, fine, we have time.
Yeah, we've no advert free.
It's Benghazi, and the general is Petraeus. That's how you say it. So it's General Petraeus. Well, there's a whole purge going on in the military right now, and there's a mystery as to what the real reason is. There's no doubt whatsoever that, first of all, that there was an attempted coup. And whether it's going on still at this time, I do not know. What I do know is that I got back channel information that the coup was led by what the most common denominator that they have between them, from what I understand, is constitutionalists. In other words, they are people who are working in the military and in also the intelligence agencies who are fed up with our government taking away our freedoms, just, because we're basically right on the border of becoming a totalitarian government, and doing this just with the Patriot Act, et cetera, et cetera. And so then the situation in the U.S. with the downturn in the economy, the banksters, you name it. I mean, there's so many things going on that are completely absurd. So my understanding is that these people want to go back to the Constitution, which our country is based on. Now, so they were launching a counter to the current administration. Now, there's a lot of disinfo going around, as you can appreciate. One of the things is, and some people will have read perhaps Webster Tarpley's article, and I do recommend it, even though I don't necessarily agree with all of it, because he does outline the various reasons, so-called reasons, why they're replacing general after general and all these different military individuals. Mm-hmm. They're saying in some cases they're saying they looked at their paperwork and decided they were, cheating on their expenses or some stupid thing. Yeah. Or they're saying, like in relationship to General Petraeus, they're saying he was having this affair, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they're digging into all kinds of completely unrelated things. And really, I mean, if everyone who ever had an affair stepped down from their jobs, I think that no one would be working in the United States, let alone the military. So this is, total absurdity. And it just gets worse. So whether or not Petraeus was involved, I don't know. So all I know is that the coup is going on, that Petraeus was relieved of his position for a ridiculous reason, and that there are countless number of people in the military right now being relieved of position or being asked to step down, so that some kind of purge is going on. Now, you can just put two and two together and know that these people that are being asked to step down are logically supporters of the so-called coup. However, I have no direct evidence of that. So, let me say that right up front. But I have been told, and interestingly enough, I had whistleblower testimony to this back channel. And so I'd been writing about it on my blog, and then I went to this very interesting event in Pennsylvania with this very wealthy man who put on quite a spread for people that work in my kind of, you might say, people that work kind of in the UFO conspiracy area, and scientists. It was also had a lot of what people might call spooks or, intelligence agents in the group as well. And it was kind of like a party, a coming out party for this very wealthy man in Pennsylvania. But they were monitoring him extremely carefully. And it was a 2 or 3 day event. And at this event, I did announce this coup to the audience at one point. And interestingly enough, some people that were in the crowd came back to me very quietly and said that, yes, that I was right and that they had information to that effect as well. So call it, put 2 and 2 together, whatever you would like. There's no doubt that there are factions of our government now that really do not appreciate what has been going on. And there are factions that know that Obama has been run by Bush for a number of years, and that the Bush cabal is in charge of our government. And where all this leads, it's obviously not positive for the U.S.
Definitely not. And obviously there's other things going on as well, which we'll touch base on and we'll talk about, because one of the things obviously is Project Bluebeam. And I know there's certain people that, when it comes to the ET side of things, they find it very hard to believe anything like that, and they want to kind of just deal with what they can touch, feel, see, and see, and all that kind of stuff. But there are bigger things going on, especially when you speak to people like Bob Dean and others like that have a background and experience in that. What's your take on Project Bluebeam? What do you think is going to happen, if anything?
Well, as I said, let me explain a couple of things first. Most of the disclosures that I'm putting out with regard to whistleblowers have been happening on my blog more than anything now, and also occasionally on radio shows, because what happens is that a lot of whistleblowers don't go in public. They don't want to go before a camera, and so that's what's going on. So in regard to Bluebeam, I would say that there is definitely a Project Bluebeam that involves what is called a fake alien invasion scenario. And this is something that Carol Rosin brought up years ago in relation to information that had been told to her by Werner von Braun, who she worked with and very closely with, and he came over as part of the Project Paperclip Nazi scientist, although Carol always claims that he was not a Nazi. I beg to differ, but that's her position. He may have been a good man. I don't know that, but I know that there's a huge Nazi contingent that's running the American government, for one thing, and that has an underground base, for example, in Argentina, and a very strong presence there, as well as in some other places in Europe, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's pretty far-reaching. Now, what goes along with all of that is that they want to hold on one second. Someone's trying to reach me. I have to tell them not to call me.
Okay.
Not going to work. Anyway, so Project Bluebeam again is kind of one of the cards that they have, that if they can't make countries create war with each other, what they will do is they will try to turn people into sort of increase the fear quotient, and also allow them to put into effect things like martial law, et cetera, et cetera. This in our country, the United States, as well as other countries. In other words, to put the world into a new world order kind of scenario. One of the last cards they may pull out of their sort of box of tricks is this Bluebeam idea, and that being that they would fill the sky with the UFOs that they have already been building and reverse engineering from the ones that they've gotten from the visitors, and as well as holograms. So, and hologram technology is extremely sophisticated at this time, which some people don't realize. So That's Project Bluebeam. I've gotten a recent NSA whistleblower who I've published various information on my blog over the past 6 months, let's say, or maybe even as much of a year. He has also said that from what he understands, that's not off the table, as he calls it. And so he is someone who is located in Colorado. And Colorado is a huge underground base and a military installation, as you can appreciate, in the United States.
Well, I can tell you what we have found out from our research and speaking to people, and maybe you can say yay or nay to this. I can understand Project Bluebeam from a psychological, financial point of view. Forget about the whole ET thing, right? If you look at it there's a lot of money to be made in space, the militarization of space. There's a lot of money there. But for them to actually get people together, I mean, it's Independence Day to a T. So instead of, if they want to unite people from a psychological point of view, this is what we kind of have talked about before. In a family where you have brothers and sisters, you tend to fight with each other. It's just the way families are. But when something from outside the family, when someone outside threatens the family, even though the family might have the differences, they'll get together because they're family and it's blood and everything else. And of course, they'll fight this threat that's coming in to the family. So if you apply that to the whole thing like Independence Day, we will stop. If there's this fake alien invasion, people will stop being Irish and English and American, and we're humans and they're aliens and they're trying to come to our planet. And so you can see from a psychological point of view how they could use their existing technology they have, plus all the holographic technology they have, to formulate this plan, to put this plan in place, to fool people into thinking that is happening. Maybe that's why Independence Day was put out there, because that's generally what they're planning to do. When and where, we don't know. The other thing that we've heard about it is about the obviously up-and-coming shift and the energy change in 2012, is that the ETs have to leave the planet because the vibrational change is going to affect them. So before that vibrational change takes place, the ETs are going to do the Project Bluebeam, and they're going to come down as the, inverted quotes, the saviors, and they're there to save you. And of course, the sheeple will run up and say, yes, I want to be saved, and they'll probably jump on board or do what they do as sheeple. And then the reptilians or whoever they are will take off, and that will be food and experimentation and what have you. Now that sounds quite way out there, but I mean, would that be near enough? Generally, what possibly could happen, or has anybody said that to you?
Well, first of all, the idea of getting humans to sort of band together, when I said New World Order, that is exactly what the plan is. The plan is to have an outside threat which causes human beings not just to band together and not, and suddenly seemingly to get along because they're united against a common enemy, which is what Reagan spoke about, et cetera, et cetera. But that the idea being that they can bring in things like to so-called defend the humans, like martial law, like the New World Order. So it works together. It's not separate. But as far as whether or not this will happen and how it will happen is another matter. You could, in some ways, notice that there's a huge presence anyway. We're being visited all over the globe, and disclosure is happening slowly but surely. And in fact, the fact that they even aired our TV pilot when they let it sit on the shelf for 2 years is an indicator that they decided to let that information out there, that the closer we get to the end of 2012 and moving into 2013, the more these things are being allowed to sort of get out there. And so Camelot, in its sense, is part of disclosure. In the end, whether or not you'll get a government ever coming forward and saying, hey, everyone, yes, you're right, we have ETs here and we've been doing deals with them. And by the way, they've been abducting you and taking and killing you and taking your fluids and your babies and impregnating the women, and we're doing alien human hybrid program. I mean, get real. They're going to lie to you no matter what they say to you. So they're not going to tell you the whole truth.
But what about China?
I mean, just let me finish here.
Okay.
Because the trouble with a fake alien invasion is that we already have ETs here. So in other words, the visitors are here. And it's very difficult for them to conduct such an experiment, if you want to call it that, while they've got the actual thing, in other words, real various races with various craft who are going to be standing by watching this and either being in agreement with it because they're from, what's called the negative service to self side, or they're going to be against it, which would be the more positive service to other side. Regardless of who they are, it's like trying to do a play when you've got the real people in the audience. It's absurd. So there are many problems with Project Bluebeam. And as far as there is, in my opinion, in fact, we've already been invaded. There is already, the governments have already done huge deals with various ET races, some of whom are extremely negative, and some of whom who have been, like I said, basically violating the human species and using the human species as food and eggs for fertilization and for creating a human hybrid program, etc. So there is a very positive side to the ET intervention, if you will, but it's been a part of our history for eons, and it's just simply that we're not realizing it until now, what we're a part of. The other thing is that we are hybrids ourselves, so that we are related to many of the races here, both positive and negative, who have contributed their DNA to us. So with all of that in mind, it's not kind of as cut and dried as it might appear.
Right, okay. And so, I mean, Project Bluebeam, as I said, could be on the cards. The information that we've got through from our side is that China is going to be the country to start the ball rolling with the disclosure.
Okay, well, I mean, like I said, disclosure is already happening, so that can hardly be the case.
Right, but is that to also benefit them?
Well, I'm not so sure how it's benefiting them. What I would say about that, and I think there's a tremendous amount of disinfo and sort of a public relations campaign going on in the so-called New Age community to put China in what is what they would like to see as a favorable position. I actually see China as extremely nefarious. I think they have a very long-term goal, and I don't think it's necessarily positive. It certainly does involve ruling the earth, contrary to what they would like their propaganda machine to be saying. And as far as disclosure, they're not leading the way in disclosure. On the contrary, disclosure, like I said, for all intents and purposes, has been happening for the last 20 years at least. And Spielberg has been part of this. Movies have been part of it. TV has been part of it. In other words, you're talking about disclosure is an awakening and is an awareness of realizing the truth about what's really going on. And so there are many sort of channels for this information, and it is worldwide. And various countries occasionally do sort of threaten the United States, where sort of the home of the secret space program has control of over whether governments disclose. You see, because when you talk about disclosure, there's two ways of talking about it. One is disclosure by the people or by organizations using various formats, whether it be Camelot, doing interviews with people who know the truth, or television shows or movies, et cetera, and how they package it. The other side of it is governments disclosing. And so far, other than releasing their so-called UFO files, which Britain has done and various other countries, I think Brazil did that, this is all part of what might be considered to be a disclosure of governments other words, releasing their files. But it's extremely limited, as everyone well knows. And as far as coming out on the world stage, saying that ETs are here and who they are, I would highly recommend everyone read, if you haven't already, Arthur C. Clarke's book, Childhood's End, because this scenario is written about, and Arthur C. Clarke was a person who Camelot was about to interview, and then he died. And we were told unequivocally that he had a very high level of access inside the secret space program. That's part of the reason he wrote the books he wrote. Obviously, he wrote them as science fiction, but in reality, a lot of them were science fact, or they were going to be fact, because some of them are very futuristic. But at any rate, when he talks about Childhood's End, he talks about a race. He talks about a government disclosing and saying, yes, the ETs are here. And in fact, the ETs is kind of like a V scenario, if you ever saw the TV series V, in which they basically come and they're very benevolent and lovely, and they say everything's wonderful, and hi, we're going to take away all war from your planet, et cetera, and we're going to do all these wonderful things for you. And meanwhile, they're all about control.
Yeah, because there's a chap in Wales called Chris Thomas, and a lot of people are talking about this, and Chris Thomas said, hang on a minute, you know, if they start coming down saying they're going to save you, want to be running in the opposite direction. Don't be too keen to go up to, you know, and believe what they're saying, you know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve, you've got just questions coming in now, quite a lot. So pass them over to Steve, and Steve, if you want.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions, Kerry. Question one, anyway, is somebody wants to know what your thoughts are. Now, we don't normally expect or ask people what their thoughts are on another person, because that's kind of unfair. But one of our listeners wants to know what your thoughts are on Patrick Gray and his credibility. Seemingly he had lots of doom and gloom to report during this year.
I'm sorry, are you talking about, I think they've got the name wrong. Are you talking about Patrick Gerald?
Patrick Gerald, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it was written Gray.
Patrick Gerald a long time ago. Several years ago now. And yes, he has been accurate, apparently, from what I hear, about some of his earthquake predictions. But then so have a lot of people in general. And a lot of people love to claim, sort of knowing that there were going to be large earthquakes this year. And I have to say that I'm not real impressed with that. Yes, he is obviously been predicting for the end of 2012. I mean, you have to look at the situation. Here we are. What is this? Sunday, at least in America, it's the 25th of November. It's 5 days away from December. In my opinion, very little of what everyone has, all the doom and gloom, has not happened. Now, we have had some things that are not positive happen. A lot of them have been created by the secret government. Incidents have happened, and there has been some earth changes, no doubt about it. We are going to be having more earth changes, as a matter of fact. And I just, when I was at this event, Paul LaViolette, someone who I interviewed a number of years ago, who is considered to be an absolutely brilliant physicist, and has written many books, and some people will be quite familiar with him. If you're not, I encourage you to watch the Project Camelot interview with Paul LaViolette. At any rate, he was there, and we were able to have several conversations. One of the conversations was about what we are moving into, and apparently there has been detected in the last 6 months this very dense, they're calling it a cloud, and I have to look up the name of it. It's called something like the P2 or G2 cloud. That physicists have detected, even in the mainstream. And what Paul LaViolette has said is that it is moving into the what's called the galactic rift, and that we are also moving in alignment with the galactic rift, and that in the process, this particular cloud, it's highly energetic, and it's very very dense, and it may be hiding, there is some thought that it may be hiding a brown dwarf. if indeed it is hiding within it a brown dwarf, its impact on the galactic rift is going to be more intense, and it may generate what he calls a gravitational wave that could then impact the Earth. And right now, I'm being told it is pushing up against the heliosphere of our sun that extends out beyond Pluto. And I've since had some discussions with other whistleblowers about this information. And it appears to be fairly accurate. In fact, Paul Laviolette has talked about the fact that as it crosses over and we cross over at the same time and we move into alignment, there could be, again, it could stimulate what in a certain sense is a super wave, although he doesn't call it that. In other words, the energetics that are going to be impacting us and are impacting us right now, because, again, as they said, this is November 25th. You can imagine that in terms of the solar system, the difference between November 25th and December 25th, 1 month of time in the solar system's kind of way of being is not terribly, in my view, probably that significant. We are moving into alignment as I speak. So all of the things that are happening, have been happening, will continue to happen. And whether or not there will be a sharp sort of jump on the 21st of December or thereabouts is not known. But I will say that is sort of relatively new information, having come to the public sector, at least in terms of this cloud. And for people that are interested, you can actually look up Paul Laviolette's blog. He has a blog and a forum, and he has a specific page in which he discusses this. And I'll probably be posting this on my blog shortly, but if you just do a search under Paul Laviolette, you will see the information. Now, I know you asked me about Patrick Gerald, and I have to say that I said this before. We put a sort of caveat on our interview with him at the time, and it still holds. I understand that some people are seeing sort of what you might call an extinction level event coming in our future, if not in the December 21st time of span. I mean, somebody just sent me some information saying, oh, suddenly Brooks Agnew is seeing something, on the 23rd of December or whatever it is. Or maybe it's November. I don't know. Anyway, that's not what I see. I have prophetic dreams, and quite a lot of them. And I have not seen this kind of thing. Now, there will be some devastation in various areas of the world, but I don't see an extinction level event happening on planet Earth, at least at this time. Maybe in the year 2019 or 2020 or in the future there's something more likely, but at this time I don't see that. So I have to say that I think Patrick Gerald is mistaken, but, I could be wrong too. So, I'm just going on my intuition and also the sort of composite of information that I have from all the different whistleblowers, and I've been doing this for about 7 years now.
So what do you think about all this? I mean, obviously David Wilcox talked about them having looking glass technology, and he couldn't get past 2012, I won't say 21st December, but 2012 in general, because he was talking about, obviously, the photon belt and the DNA changes that are going to take place because of this wave that's coming in. What's your take on that information?
First of all, the DNA change is already happening. The sun, the activity on the sun is augmenting that. The energetics hitting Earth right now are powerful. I heard you talking about you sort of feeling unusual and having strange dreams. I mean, this is all part of it. In other words, this has been going on for the past couple of years. It will be escalating as we move into this, but I have to say, no doubt about it. Maybe other people realize it, but the more you meditate, the more you can access this sort of added, I don't know what you want to call it. Our superpowers are starting to emerge. Our ability to be more psychic is emerging. I myself have been having some fabulous, amazing things go on, and I assume they're going to continue, and I think that this is just an escalating kind of sort of sea of awareness that we're moving into as the human race. There's no going back. This is going to move forward and continue to escalate.
Well, we're going to be, obviously, we might as well talk about this now. Two of the things that I've come across, you have two people. One is Drumvalo Melchizedek, who talks about this Merkabah that we're supposed to meditate and be able to protect ourselves because it's the 3 days of darkness. And if you don't have this Merkabah, if you haven't meditated, the reset button be pressed and you won't actually remember anything. And then you have the Mayan elder who's on YouTube. You can actually see him. He talks about this 8 minutes of awakened consciousness, which they're trying to put the things in place to keep that 8 minutes on the planet for 3 months. Again, different takes on the same thing, 2012. So, I always say we keep an open mind to this, but have you come across this information?
Well, I don't really follow Drunvalo's information, and part of that is because there's disagreement with regard to spin and some of the information that was released via Ashiana Dean and her contacts, who I have also had contact with. So there is a disagreement there, and you have to appreciate that there are many races of ETs, and each group is impacting the group that sort of probably the DNA most resembles their own. So we will not be in agreement as to how we see the coming weeks and days, and we will also not be in agreement in how we experience them. All right? So I appreciate these other people having sort of different views about what's going to go on. As far as there being 3 days of darkness, I know there are prophecies about that. I have to say that, first of all, I'm taking a group to Egypt during this time, and I purposely have chosen to do this because I want to anchor the light at the vicinity of the Great Pyramid, a place where a lot of the dark forces have taken over energetically, and we are going to be there. Carmen Balta is taking a group. There are going to be many groups going to the vicinity of the Great Pyramids, the pyramids in general, in Egypt, and there are other power places on Earth where you can go, and certainly the effects will be augmented if you go to these places. As you can appreciate, they're always augmented when you go to a power place. But regardless of where you are on the planet Earth, you're going to be feeling these energetics. I'm not so sure about 3 days darkness. Perhaps it's coming. I haven't seen it, okay, and I have not talked to people about it very much. I've heard, I believe it's in the Bible. I think that there's some kind of confusion to some degree about timing. And I'm not at all sure that the 21st of December is sort of the date that people think it's going to be. But at any rate, I'm actually not worried about it. So I don't know what to tell you. Yeah,
well, I did notice that, you were off to Egypt from the 10th to the 23rd of December. So that kind of said to me when I seen that, I thought, well, Terry's probably not too concerned about what's going to be going on around that time. I'll pass you over to Steve. We've got more questions come in there. Steve?
Yeah, we have another question come in earlier on, Kerry. It's in relation to your comments, please, on Fort Detrick and human cloning.
Okay, Fort Detrick. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by my comments on Fort Detrick. Maybe Fort Detrick was one of the places I referred to, but I don't have specific. I'm wondering if they're getting a person mixed up. Are you talking about? Let's see. Forget his first name, but anyway, are you talking about Dietrich, one of the witnesses that has come on and was talking? He worked in in San Francisco. Are you talking about that?
I'm not actually sure, Kerry. I think it was in relation to human cloning. We could just ask the listener if you want to just send that question in again, maybe a little more information. But while that's happening, I mean, we do have another one here for you as well. Your view on Andrew. I'm going to get this one.
Basargo.
What?
Basargo.
All right. Okay.
Project Pegasus, I think. Andrew Basargo, Kerry.
Yeah, it's Bashago.
Oh,
like Chicago, it's Bashago.
Bashago.
From my understanding. We did interview him, by the way, on our TV show. I've also interviewed him on my radio show. It's kind of difficult because, as you understand, that I don't want to sort of specifically target individuals. Let me say about Andrew that I have information that he may be have some implanted memories. Now, whether or not he's been to Mars, I don't know. There is a whole program that he is correct in his overall. All right, let's say that there's a jump room to Mars. There are a number of, you might say, jump gates to Mars that the military uses. Whether or not they use children to go back and forth at a certain time is very possible. I don't know. But I've talked to Andrew, and I have another witness, trying to decide whether I can say this publicly, who has actually challenged him. God, it's probably going to cause a firestorm. But at any rate, I guess it's okay to say that Henry Deacon, who came out under his own name, Arthur Neumann, has actually written to Andrew. And he's offered to do a show with Andrew and talk about being on Mars because, as many people will know, Arthur Neumann is our witness, Henry Deacon, who came out years before Andy Bashago and revealed that he had been on Mars. And in fact, he went on stage with me. He actually went on stage, and I accompanied him in Barcelona to announce that he'd been on as a scientist working on Mars and going back and forth there. There are other people that have been on Mars. There's no doubt that there's a base, a military base there, at least in my mind. I've got many, many witnesses from back channel talking about that, in addition to Henry Deacon. So, as I say, for Andy Bashago, I know that some of his information is accurate. Whether or not he himself was part of the program, I don't know. I know there's some question that we have as to some of his information, so I kind of will leave it at that.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, we don't go any further if you're not happy saying anything about that, but that's fine. Well, that's good because we actually emailed Andrew and we did ask him to come on the show. I believe he's working on a book at the moment, and he said that he would give us a shout when the actual book is finished. The problem is with all this, Kerry, and I'm sure you'll probably agree, people telling you stuff is fine, but it's getting the evidence and the proof from them, the documentation, some information, some artifacts or something from them, because all we really have to go by is what they say. And if, as you say, if some of that information has been implanted, then how do we prove that what they're saying is true?
Well, that's a very good question. And the bottom line is, in a sense, that's what Camelot has been investigating, doing for the last 7 years. And so I have to say that there's a number of ways that you can use to verify, at least to some degree, whether something is true or false. And let me say from the outset that from my point of view, documentation can be faked.
Yeah.
There is a way, just as Obama's birth certificate being the most notorious piece of documentation along those lines. There's no way that I would believe documentation before witness testimony. And I know that that's controversial. In other words, my position and the way I shoot the interviews is part of this, is that we as humans have what I believe and what I understand to be sort of a truth resonator, which is a combination of the heart and the mind, and that when we hear truth, it resonates. We are really much more amazing, sort of, our capabilities are more amazing than we ever dreamed. And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, the human library, the genetic library, and the witness testimony of the humans themselves is always, as we move into the future, going to be the most important sort of documentation or evidence that you're going to ever need of anything. Everything else can be faked. And, archaeological relics are a very wonderful way of getting some verification of certain things, no doubt about it. But in the end, witness testimony is really where it's at as far as I'm concerned. Now, so what I'm saying is that's because we have a way of resonating truth within us. And the more you come to trust that, the more you find out that it really does work. The better off you are in terms of having less sort of doubt and confusion in your own mind. But that's our human instrument. It's part of our makeup to be able to determine truth from falsity. Now, with that in mind, I will say that on top of that, we use a technique that the intelligence agencies use, which is to triangulate information from 3 completely unrelated sources, so that if we get information coming from 3 people who don't know each other, don't know about each other or their testimony, and they basically come forward separately, that it's a very good chance that if 3 people come and tell you something, that where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, from that point on, you have to continue to investigate, but that's a very good way to begin to follow out a trail, and that's certainly something that's tried and true and used by intelligence agencies worldwide. So that's another way. And the other way is obviously to do further investigation, to see what's out there, to see other information that's been written in books, et cetera, et cetera. Again, yes, a lot of people like to think that just because somebody writes a book that it's true, or just because they see it in writing it's true, or just because a so-called authority, call it a scientist, tells you something. I mean, a perfect example is Sean Carroll. If you watch our TV show, you'll see we did not bring that witness, but Sean Carroll is a physicist who's highly, highly respected worldwide. He works for Caltech, and he is a person that we were interviewing. What you don't see on the TV show is that in a certain part of the interview with him, he actually ripped his mic off and stomped off the set, saying, "I didn't sign up for this." Because we were asking him about time travel, and we were actually giving him information that contradicted the answers he was giving us. And on top of it, I started talking to him about remote viewing and what's called signal non-locality. And he tried to say that there was no such thing as remote viewing, which is completely absurd if you've done your research. Now, whether he really believes that or whether he was just giving us a line of bull thinking that we were much stupider than we are, I don't know, because I'm sure that he had no idea who we are when we talked to him on set. But nonetheless, that's a perfect example where you get a physicist who is lying through his teeth. Either that or he simply has been so programmed by the matrix that he basically doesn't know the truth.
That's incredible to think that he would be naive enough to think that you actually would know anything about remote viewing. I mean, you don't have to be a scientist. I do a lot of research to understand what remote viewing is and how it was used even during the Cold War.
Absolutely. Well, there's a history of it, you see, and there are books that have been written documenting that history in our military in the U.S. And there are many, many people who have, I myself have studied and done remote viewing and proved, to myself that it works. So, for whatever reason, he found it necessary to do that. Now, again, I am sure he didn't do his homework. That happens a lot. A lot of people will I'll do interviews with them. They will have no idea who Project Camelot is. They simply want to do, you call somebody up and say, do you want to be on a TV show? And they're a well-known physicist. They're going to say yes,
Yeah.
So he probably didn't really research us. He probably relied on other people to research us, and they probably came back and said, oh, yeah, they're legitimate or something. Who knows? All I'm saying is that if you're questioning, if you're wanting proof, so-called proof of what's really going on, you need to also question what you consider to be proof.
Exactly, yeah. I think you have to definitely question it. One of the things that we come across, Kerry, and you'd probably be in a position as well that we have come across, is that obviously what we want to do here and Open Your Mind is to, there's people out there who have a book or a DVD, or they have information, or a whistleblower, and they want to come out and they want to tell people information. Obviously, that's the reason why they're saying what they're saying. And what we do is we would email them and we'd say, listen, do you want to come on the show? Tell us what you know, educate our listeners, and tell us about your DVD and your book and all that kind of stuff. Which is, the whole idea of getting the alternative media and getting the information out there. But we have come across a handful of people who, for some reason, don't seem to be interested in being interviewed or being in the media, which we find very strange. I don't know whether you've come across this or whether it's ego-based or whatever, but we're saying, well, hang on, you've just released this book, DVD, or whatever, or you have this information. Surely you want to tell people about it, but yet you won't go into the media and do interviews. And I personally don't know why. Myself and Steve have talked about it. The majority of people are fantastic, and you ask them and they come on and we have a great chat and the information gets out there. It's brilliant. Now, I do know that, and you probably know it as well, there are people in the alternative media who are in it purely for the money and really not the subject matter. They can see that there's a book to be made with it, so they'll come out, and it could be somebody, a scientist or something like that. But have you ever come across people where, you've questioned it and said to yourself, well, Project Camelot want to do an interview with you, and this person doesn't want to do an interview, and it's not because they're a whistleblower and they're going to get killed or anything, but for some reason they just don't want to do it, and you're thinking, scratching your head and thinking, why aren't they doing this?
Well, there are people that are very private, and some people who can write, but they don't feel comfortable speaking in public, because being able to speak in public, not having stage fright, all these different things, they do affect people. So there are the people that sort of rare people that are like that, and that's okay. I mean, it really, in a certain sense, I mean, if somebody writes a book, sometimes they want the book to stand on its own, and that's really the only contribution they want to make. It all revolves around how people want to make their contribution to the sector. I have to also say that there are people that are worried about public ridicule, and they don't want to be associated publicly with even a book they've written. I know it's strange, but I have come across that. So it does go on, because this sector, as you can appreciate, if you're revealing the truth about the Matrix itself is quite powerful, and its minions are many, and they will go out and attack you. And the minute you hit the public sector, a lot of people find out that it's not terribly pleasant all the time. In other words, I can tell you myself, I've had constant sort of disinfo put out about me, about Camelot, just outright lies that people just write, and then also the cruelty of people, because they will criticize people right, left, and center in all kinds of ways, whether it's character or their looks or whatever it happens to be. And some people are very sort of shy in that regard. I personally am not that way, but there are people that are, and so you have to respect that. I think that it's not always because they have some ulterior motive or they're they're sort of weird. It's just it isn't necessarily fun. And some people who are in this sector for a while eventually get so sick of sort of having stones thrown at them, metaphorically speaking, regardless of what they say and do, that they just retreat and they no longer want to be part of it. And it in some ways it is understandable.
Yeah.
It can be a very unpleasant place to be in the eye of the general public.
Well, hopefully that's changing because of the amount of disclosure that's going on and the amount of the alternative media stations and newspapers and websites. And I mean, it's just even in the last couple of years, there's been an explosion of that. It's incredible, even as I say, going back 2 years, how much people have come out and opened up to what's going on. And even in Ireland, we see it. Even if they don't want to talk about the cabal or the New World Order or whatever, but they're just not happy with the government and what the government are doing and all this austerity. Even on that level, people have had enough, and that's good to us. That's good enough to us. If they don't trust the government, which means, well, that's a good start. Okay, don't trust your government because they don't care about you. And, taking it from there, I think, is a good thing. I'm just going to pass over to Steve. Steve has a few more questions for you there, Kerry.
Yeah, Kerry, I've 3 questions here. I'll start with the easy question first. And that's one of the listeners is wondering, is there a website with information on remote viewing?
Oh, my God, there's so many. First of all, you should do a Google search and just put remote viewing, and you'll see there's a zillion links. But the one I highly recommend is Ingo Swann was one of the most well-known remote viewers and one of the best. He's also a very good psychic, so that he's not he doesn't limit his ability to the remote viewing protocols. And his website is called biomindsuperpowers.com. So it's the word bio, then mind, and I'll type it into the chat for people. And it's a fabulous website, and he has a ton of information there. He also has a history of remote viewing, by the way, there. And he was very, very much involved in the history of remote viewing, so he's a good person to sort of read his information on that particular subject. There are so many books out there, I can't even count them. I can also tell you that I've done several live events with, I've done interviews with various remote viewers. I just had another one on my show Friday night, I think it was. His name is Alfred Coda. He's also known as Alfred Mock. Anyway, it's on the front page of Project Camelot under the radio show icon. Excuse me. Let's see. You can also see on the front page of Camelot that I've interviewed and had a live event, which is called the Camelot Roundtable, with Courtney Brown. And Courtney Brown is head of what's called the Farsight Institute. He has done remote viewing of 2013, and we did a whole show on it. Sorry.
That's okay. Do you want to take a break and have a drink of water and stuff? We'll take a few minute musical break and be back to you after this.
Give us a call on 046 927 1212. This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMIreland.com, CNSradio.me.com, and ICRadioNetwork.com.
Okay, we're back. Kerry, are you back with us?
Yes.
Excellent. We just finished off that little segment regarding the remote viewing. The person just wants to know where can they learn remote viewing?
Oh, right. And so obviously BioMind Superpowers, Ingo Swann's website is one place. As I said, put a Google search for remote viewing and you'll find a ton of information. The other thing is the Project Camelot website. If you'd like to listen to a remote viewer talk about their research and their evidence that they gathered through the remote viewing technique, Courtney Brown was interviewed on Camelot. It's on the front page of Camelot. All you have to do is go to projectcamelot.org or projectcamelot.tv or projectcamelotportal.com, and they all take you to the same place. and we actually have a couple of live events that we conducted with Courtney Brown. One specifically called it's on the front page, but it's Courtney Brown Part 2, and there's a Part 1 as well. And I believe we charge for that, but it's something very small, like $12 or something. It's the price of a movie, basically. And you have to understand that we do charge for those events because, first of all, we do pay the speakers, and it takes a lot of organization to get these things up there, and I also pay my webmaster and other support staff to get these things to happen. So, and then we try to make some money to support my work, simply because relying on donations has not been enough to keep Camelot going.
Yeah, no,
anyway, that's where you find out about remote viewing.
Okay, no, that's great. We understand that as well. Obviously, to run the radio station does cost money, and we rely on donations like yourself, just to kind of maintain what we have, and obviously to update what we have as well. And with the major austerity that everybody's suffering under at the moment, which is quite bad over here in Ireland, like most America's the same, UK's the same, Europe. So everybody's suffering. What do you feel is going to happen? What's your prediction for the next few months? What do you think is going to, what's your feeling, as opposed to information, but what's your feeling of what will happen in the next few months with the air changes apparently taking place, and the disclosure, the things that are going on, good or bad?
Well, I think both. I have a very positive outlook of the future, believe it or not. I know that people might be surprised by that because I'm Project Camelot, and I do hear all kinds of points of view, and what a lot of people think is doom and gloom. I don't think of as doom and gloom. I simply think that this is part of the human experience that we've all elected to be part of, and I think we're living in very exciting times. I don't know what will happen in the future. I'm not, even though I do have sort of precog dreams of the future, I don't put a lot of them out there because I don't think that it's helpful to for me to limit the future for others if I have influence and put too much out there in that regard. I try to keep a very open mind in spite of my dreams and allow for sort of the unexpected to happen. And I don't think prophecy is all that is all that useful, other than to prepare you for an eventuality that may or may not happen. And so, unlike some people, I don't put a lot of emphasis on preparing for the future. I know some people who spend all their time preparing for the future and very little time living in the present. But I'm just not one of them. But that isn't to put down those people some of the people that are preparing, they have an inner guidance that they're following. And I think by all means you need to follow your inner guidance. I'm doing that. I encourage everyone to do that. So in terms of the very near future, as I've said, I'm taking a group to Egypt. I expect that to be a very interesting time. I don't think there'll be any cataclysms during that time, at least in Egypt. I have had a prophetic dream that told me there will be what has already actually happened, that there will be some explosions, whatever you want to say, in Israel or in the Gaza area at the time that I'm in our group is in Egypt. I know that that will be going on. So you might say that I'm seeing that in the future. Let me see what else. I do believe that we are entering a very special time in which access to ascension is more prevalent for humans. But again, you have to be in a place where you can raise your frequency high enough through meditation and through clearing up your karma to be able to I do think humans in general are their frequency is raising, and I think just by exposure to some of the humans that have raised frequency can then stimulate a person who hasn't done a whole lot to begin to raise their frequency. In other words, it's kind of catching, you might say.
And what do you think of this move to what people are talking about, the move to the fourth and fifth dimension because of these energy changes we're going through?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we're moving from the third to the fourth already, and that we're really very, very much in the fourth more and more, and I think that that's going to continue. So I think that that's part of the sort of program for planet Earth. I do believe she's moving into more dimensions. Now, I don't know whether there will be ultimately a sort of a split in planet Earth. There is said to be a possible split coming up in which some of the people will end up almost going down a dimension rather than up, and others will continue sort of an upward trajectory. And there will be many people who leave this incarnation at this time. So I think that there are souls out there whose bodies have not been outfitted to deal with the higher vibration, and because of that, they contact things like cancer, et cetera, and they're unable to cure themselves of these things, and they will ultimately pass on, and that's happening more and more. So I think that in a certain sense we're in an escalating time where part of the proof, if you want to call it proof, of being in the fourth dimension is where you no longer think something, but it materializes. Part of what we are doing as humans is learning that we are co-creators of our universes, multiverses, call them what you will, so that what you think you can actually materialize, and I mean that quite literally. Eventually, we will literally materialize reality directly out of our mind. At this time, it takes a certain amount of kind of collusion of events for this materialization to happen. But it's happening more and more rapidly, and pretty soon it will seem to be almost instantaneous. I've seen it myself happening more and more. No longer will I have a thought, then something related to that thought will manifest almost instantaneously. So what the corollary to that, of course, is be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Say.
I do feel that when the whole kind of shifting of energy and the vibration has definitely changed, and this is just my own opinion, I feel the waking up process for people, I mean literally when people wake up, not just people from a day-to-day basis being unhappy with their government, but when the penny drops and you go through that wake-up process, that's, to me, was a shift in consciousness, because life changes completely after that.
Sure. Again, you manifest what you want to see. And so I think what happens also is that life has a way of sort of jarring you into or sort of new experiences. And even if you resist, a lot of times there will be incidents that will then sort of propel you forward. Otherwise, you will have some kind of setback if you resist the river, so to speak.
Well, go with the flow, as they say. Go with the energy. Go with the energy. I'll pass you off to Steve. Steve, you've got a few more questions there.
I do have a few more questions. Two we didn't get to thus far, but we will. Kerry, one of our listeners is wondering the fact that you've kind of seen so much. What are your thoughts on the economic collapse? Is that going to happen? The economic collapse of the dollar, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that it is, and it's very fascinating. I know that, people will know that I was dealing with the White Hats, and I was also dealing with, I wrote a very special report that's on Camelot for those that are interested. If you go to the top where it has the links to my blog, below that you'll see an articles link, and certain articles I've written are in that area, so if you don't want to search through my blog to get the various articles, you can find some special articles in that area. Anyway, I wrote a very long report called Black Projects Follow the Money. And that report was written on a weekend for the White Hats. And when I say the White Hats, I'm talking about a group that publishes a special group of reports that are all financially, more or less financially oriented. They are forensic financial investigators primarily. And the name of that site is tdarkcabalblogspot.com, I believe is the link. At any rate, I have had many dealings with them and found them to be a very good, principled group, and they have now a fairly worldwide organization, from what I understand, that's loosely made up of ex-military, current military, and intel agency people, as well as laymen, people in the public, and so on. So what happened is I wrote this report for them, and I also have been dealing with them because they have been very much involved in what's called the global settlements and seeing that materialize, as well as what is called the revaluation of the currencies, specifically the reval of the dinar. And many people have invested in the dinar because it was said to be going to revalue. And I'm not a financial expert by any means, but my understanding is that this is something that is very likely impending. I was given the advice about it quite a while ago, so I did invest a small amount of money. I didn't have much, but the idea here being that it at some point, if it revals, it's going to reval to a lot of, be worth a lot. In other words, if you invest 1,000, you could get 1 million. So I figure investing 1,000 to get 1 million, even if it never happens, is not a bad wager. So I did that. But there are people that have really gone crazy and invested all kinds of money. I've even heard of people investing money and losing their houses. In other words, they really went overboard. I don't know if this is ever going to happen. There's a lot of information in the back channel that I get all the time, and I've got some whistleblowers as well that report in this regard. And I can say that actually right now as we speak, this weekend, as a matter of fact, there was some new activity. A lot of what's going on, for some reason, is happening in Reno. This seems to be where the Chinese, and believe it or not, the Chinese are very involved in all of this. They are, if you want my take on it, and again, I can't say whether this is absolutely accurate, but the way I see it is the Chinese are offering to fund the revaluation of the dinar. And I believe possibly, I'm not sure about the global settlements, whether that's wrapped into it or not, but I believe that they are supposedly revaluing the dinar in exchange for wanting to become the reserve currency. Now, my understanding is that this is not going to happen easily. In other words, this is what the Chinese want, and that they're not just revaluing the dinar out of the goodness of their hearts, but that they want obviously to become the reserve currency, which means that they would be what's called the petrodollar, that all oil, etc., would be using their currency as an exchange. My understanding is also that the Federal Reserve was taken over by the Treasury not long ago, and that the government is probably not going to let go of that, of being the reserve currency. But I do understand there's a huge push from Europe and from the Chinese and maybe various countries who want to see another country sort of commandeer the right to be the reserve currency. That's part of the battle going on, and that's part of the reason that the dinar, I think, has not revalued. Now, some people who are financial would probably be able to argue this in a much more intelligent way, so I don't want to get too deeply into that. But suffice to say that it hasn't happened yet. It's been worked on and promised for probably a few years now. There are news groups all over the internet very involved in all of this, and lots of disinfo going out. there are a lot of sort of what do you call fraudsters, even people that have been arrested who go to Reno and try to garner people's investments and so on and so forth around all of this. So you have to be really, really careful with all of it. What else can I tell you? So that's the financial situation that I know about. There's no doubt that a lot of the wars that are being conducted at this time, and there are weather wars. In other words, there's a war going on. It is a world, it's both on and off planet, and it involves an economic war. There is a currency war. There is a war for a weather war. That's part of it. In other words, they're causing weather events, earthquakes, etc., around the world in order to kind of throw their weight around. And this, when I say they, I mean various countries. We know that they have scalar weaponry. We know they have HARP. We know they have these abilities both in China and Russia. For example, they also obviously have it in the United States. So the people are witnessing these kinds of things going on in and around our lives. In some cases, for example, the recent Hurricane Sandy, there's ample evidence that this thing was winding down and was sort of reactivated time and time again. They were obviously doing this for a purpose. What purpose, we don't know. There are various aspects to it. I had some back channel information about Hurricane Sandy that went up the east coast of the U.S., if you're not familiar with that, and caused amazing amounts of destruction. That, again, it was augmented by HARP, augmented by some other, electromagnetic weapons, whatever. And that possibly there was a transfer of I don't even understand the whole thing, but there's something to do with a transfer of money that took place in the back channel, where funds were transferred from huge funds of money went from the East Coast to places like Colorado, etc. during that event, during this sort of destruction that was going on. And why they did it, I don't know the whole story. But just in answer to your question, that sort of, in terms of the economy, in other words, nothing is isolated. Everything is interrelated.
And it's linked. Yeah, we had Pastor Williams on the show as well as John Moore, and we were talking about the petrodollar and the BRIC countries and the actual trading that's going on now between, I think, India and Iraq regarding the gold for the oil, and the petrodollar is just going to fall flat because all that money is going to be coming back because it's not going to be the default currency anymore, which is going to cause major economic problems, and of course everybody's going to get hit by that as well. What we'll do is we have a couple of questions. We're going to have a few quick hit questions for you, and one is a very quick one saying, can you ask Kerry if she puts any faith in the words of Leo Zagami?
Well, I mean, I would encourage everyone to see our interview with Leo Zagami if you haven't done so already. And I will say that when we interviewed him, I believe we caught him at a very crucial time when he was very disenchanted with the Illuminati, and he was sort of out for a very short time and revealing a lot of truths in that interview. Since then, he was reined back in, he was taken over, he was et cetera, et cetera. And where he's at now, I don't know. I'm not in touch with him. I would simply say anything that he's involved in or doing is most likely working for the Black Pope, very specifically, and for that group, his specific part of the Illuminati. I think it's called the P2 Lodge, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, P2 are well known, yeah.
And so I would be very, very careful. There's a lot of deception there.
Yeah, the P2 are well known for what they've got up to. One of the books I'd recommend our listeners, two books. One is Secrets of the Vatican, and the other one is In God's Name. Very, very two good books regarding what went on in the Vatican and the Catholic religion for people who are into that sort of thing. Steve.
Yeah, another question here. It came in there earlier on, and that's Kerry. Can we have your thoughts on Laura Eisenhower? And the poster says Laura was supposed to be involved in recruitment for the colonization of Mars.
Well, I think that might be they're putting that the wrong way. What Laura talks about, and I have to say, I think Laura is a absolutely lovely soul, and I really, I love her. I think she's wonderful. But what you're talking about is that she was part of a program in which they offered her basically a ticket to Mars and to leave the Earth. And I'm sure that's true. She comes from an Illuminati bloodline, the Eisenhowers, as you can appreciate. And that's just part of her family heritage, so to speak. She rebelled against that. As a soul, she decided to stay on Earth and to help with the time of transition, and that's pretty much what she's doing. So, not sure what else to say about that.
Okay, well, she's come out and talked about a number of things. As you say, there seems to be a lot of people that have been involved with this Mars project. Andrew, William Stillings, and Laura Eisenhower. I'm sure there's probably more people out there that we're not aware of that have been involved with that. Kerry, what do you say to people? I mean, with the vast amount of interviews you've done, and the people like Bob Dean, who are like, the information you have is fantastic. What do you say to the naysayers who say, E.T., yeah, okay, keep taking the tablets?
Well, I'm not sure who's taking what tablets. I mean, I always refer people to the Matrix movie and taking the red pill or the blue pill. Obviously, if you prefer the blue pill, as that statement suggests, then you prefer the Matrix, and you don't really want to know. So I'm not sure what the answer. I mean, there's no point in really having a dialogue about it, is there?
Well, no, it's just obviously that's the kind of saying that we say over here, keep taking the tablets because you're delusional, in other words. But there's so much evidence out there to say, what's going on with the ETs, and they've been visiting, and if anything, there has been an increase in sightings. Now, whether they are real or whether they're holographic, I don't know. But there's definitely been an increase. Whether that's part and parcel of the whole disclosure project, I don't know, but there's definitely governments have been releasing secret files under the Freedom of Information Act. A lot of countries have been doing that, and America probably no different. They've probably been releasing information as well. And so this is why I'm saying about some people still have a very closed mind to things like this. So it's just strange that in this day and age with so much information out there and so many, when we've Stanton Friedman on the show and we've talked to him about things. Now, he debunks quite a lot of people who say they've seen things and experienced things because he deals with documentation and proof. But yet, he'll be the first one to turn around and say, well, of course they have this. Of course there's ETs, and of course they have this technology.
Sure. Well, I can't speak for him. I would say, again, obviously Project Camelot deals with revealing the truth behind the Matrix. So we're always going down the rabbit hole and very happy to investigate most everything. Someone who has a closed mind, you're really asking me what is the state, what to do with a person who has a closed mind, and what basically I think the principle is that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I don't think you can force your world view on another person. I don't think there's any point to it. I just think that, you obviously go about doing things and revealing things that you know to be true. And then if people want to come around and share that knowledge, that's great. But you also have to, it's freedom of thought. Whatever people want to think, let them think. If they prefer to be inside the matrix and prefer to remain asleep, then that's their journey. And I don't think that you can really do much more than present who you are and make that freely available or as available as possible, and then just allow for free will.
I agree. Steve, a couple of quick shot questions there for Kerry.
Yeah, Kerry, I know we're short on time. There's a couple of questions coming in here, and one is from Lord Weber. A quick fire question. He says, James Casbolt, is he for real?
Yes, in my view, he's very much been highly, let's say, altered by probably originally coming from a rather Illuminati bloodline anyway, and then being sort of augmented probably to some degree as a super soldier. He's got a vast amount of information and knowledge. He's had access to all kinds of stuff. I have a lot of stuff on Camelot about James Casbolt, writings that he's sent me, etc., that go down the rabbit hole quite far. Most of it appears to be quite accurate, in my view.
Okay. Next one from someone called Smith. Kerry, have the White Hats ever mentioned the convergence of timelines or a funneling of events near December 21st?
Well, let me say first of all that the White Hats, at least the ones from Dark Cabal Blogspot, are not the sort that talk about metaphysical events. They talk about sort of the here and now. They're very, like I said, it really is all about financial. They follow the money. Yeah. So no, I don't think that they've ever talked about that, to my knowledge. They may be aware of various things, and I know that some of them have been sort of watching or reading things on Camelot from time to time. But as far as the convergence of timelines, that's something that has been talked about and definitely seems to be happening, I have to say, from my point of view. But as far as the White Hats, no, I don't believe they've ever talked about that.
Okay. Kerry, I've got 3 more questions. I know we are kind of reaching that time, so I mean, I'm going to get these 3 questions out of the way, and then I think we're going to have to wrap things up. But the 3 questions are, which are the last 3, one from Storm Rager, and Storm Rager says, Richard Allen Miller, what does Kerry think about his work creating super soldiers with radio waves?
Well, I just interviewed Richard Allen Miller. He's a wonderful man and extremely brilliant, has worked in black projects, and I am working very hard to get this interview edited and out there. So as far as creating super soldiers with radio waves, I think that's a simplistic explanation. That's not, to my knowledge, what he is involved in. I do believe he has worked in the area of sort of augmenting soldiers and sort of increasing their powers and abilities. And I think he understands various means of doing that. I think what you're talking about is more the idea that they can be controlled using radio waves, as can any human, or at least they can try. So, I think that maybe the way the question was phrased wasn't exactly accurate. But at any rate, Richard Allen Miller is a current witness. I actually went and interviewed him and was part of a workshop that he did in Reno, and had a lot of fun. And he's just a brilliant man.
Okay. Second last question. What does Kerry think about the use of pyramids in the astral?
Well, I mean, I think pyramid power is very real. I think that if you question pyramid power, then you should go to Egypt, because the minute you get off the plane, you're going to feel the effects of true pyramid power. So I'm not sure. I mean, in the astral, I mean, it affects all levels. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the triangle, the pyramid, whatever you want to call it, is one of the most basic, I guess you call it a platonic solid, that that affects space, and it is a configuration. So it's a geometry, and as such can affect hyperdimensionally our reality and so on.
Okay. And last question, Kerry. This is from Lord Vapor, and he says, serious question. Has Kerry investigated the Vatican and Jesuit Order Illuminati?
Yeah, I actually have had, recently on my radio show, I've had a man named William Dean Garner, and he's writing books about the Jesuits and doing investigations, and has been for quite a number of years now. He's also been a mercenary, rescuing people from various countries, although he won't talk in depth about that part of his experience. He's an interesting man. He's currently living in South Africa, but he's an American. So yeah, and I'm actually reading a book right now. It's called I think Rulers of Evil, and it was recommended to me, I think, either by Jordan Maxwell or by William Dean Garner. But certainly the Jesuits factor in, and seeing how deeply they are involved in the whole scenario is quite fascinating. It's obvious, I'm told, and I understand that the Jesuits are in many ways considered to be the military arm of the Vatican. But as I'm reading in Rulers of Evil, apparently they've basically the Jesuit order has infiltrated all aspects of certainly. Sorry, this is my dog. In the
okay.
back.
I thought you were hungry. I thought it was your stomach.
He's frustrated because he wants attention. Anyway, so regarding the Jesuits, I would say there's a great deal of information out there. There's no doubt, and I'm interested in bringing forward more witnesses that have more information about the impact of the Jesuits and the so-called rule of the Vatican over governments as well, because there's ample evidence that the center of power on planet Earth, at least on the dark side, comes from within the Vatican.
I'd have to agree with you on that one with the information that I've read. Kerry, we've reached that time. The interview was fantastic. Thank you again for coming on and giving us an update on everything that you've gone through and the people you've come across, and obviously what you're doing. You're heading off to Egypt in December there. A big thank you, and hopefully next year we'll get you on again, get another update, maybe go back to this interview and go, remember when we talked about this, and we'll be hopefully in a much better place next year sometime. Fingers crossed anyway. But before we sign off, tell us, give us all your contact details and your website and all that, so people know where to get in touch with you.
Okay, well, you can write to me at Kerry@projectcamelot.tv. That's the best email address to use. But my email address is under contact on Project Camelot, as well as our bio, etc. Just go to projectcamelot.org, projectcamelotportal.com, or projectcamelot.tv. It's all the same website. And that's about it as far as contact and information. Brilliant.
Well, listen, Kerry, have a great time over in Egypt, and take care of yourself. As usual, watch your back, because you never know with these people what they get up to. And for myself and Steve, we'll say good night to you, and take it easy and have a good day.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kerry, thanks a million. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kerry. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, we have 3 minutes, so very, very quickly. That was Kerry Cassidy. Brilliant stuff from Kerry. We'll have the podcast up as soon as we can for people who are saying they're having trouble listening. We were inundated with listeners on the show to listen to the interview with Kerry, so the systems have been working overtime, which is fantastic. As usual, when Kerry comes on, they tend to be like that. That tends to happen. On next week's show, we have Harry from We the People, and we're going to have a chap called James O'Sullivan, I believe is his name, who was arrested by the police, and he shouldn't have been. He was taken by the police and put in a police cell, and he got off in court because he did an affidavit of truth, with a solicitor, and they knew that the police were going to, they'd be in trouble, so the judge just actually signed off. They didn't even bring it into court, it was just struck off and they were let go. So we're going to have James on next week to tell us all about that as well, and what happened. So for people that need to know some information. Steve?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. And as usual, Harry, I can't wait to have Harry on slide a few washers across the counter there. I mean, Harry's always a good bit of fun. Come here, we did mention there last week as well about Direct Democracy Ireland, DDI, and just anyone who's living in the Republic of Ireland, Ben Gilroy is now fronting, he's now, that probably sounds like that's the wrong word to use, isn't it? It sounds like he's fronting the mafia. He's the new leader of the Direct Democracy Ireland, so anyone in Ireland who is, maybe fancies a bit of change or fancies supporting Ben and co should pop along to their website or just Google Direct Democracy Ireland. They're actually going to return to, raise some funds at the moment, and they're looking for all help, all hands on deck. So
exactly. So that's it. That's the show. Brilliant information, and we'll be back next week, and see what happens during the week. You never know what happens. But for myself, take it easy, be safe, and we'll talk to you next week. For myself, Alan James, good night.
Okay, and for myself, Stephen George, last words to me. We do it all again next week. I really appreciate everyone who tuned in and all the questions that were posed. I do apologise for reading some of the questions backwards. I must be dyslexic or something, and also for the misspellings. I think I'm going to have to get these glasses checked. Should have gone to spec servers. Right, we'll do it all again next week, folks. Take care. Have a safe week. Bye bye.
Open your mind.